What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and today I've got another book review for you, and I'm going to be talking about Lucid Screams by Lagoe. This is a short story collection. It's 16 total stories over about 190 pages or so. So the stories aren't too awful long, about 10 pages or so. But I'm going to read the synopsis real quick, and then I'll go through each story and give you just a few quick words, quick description of each one, and I'll also tell you my top 3 stories in the collection. So Lucid Screams. Mythical creatures, inner demons, and fear are a few forms in which monsters present themselves. When confronted by such savage beasts, the vulnerability of humanity is often exposed. Will we rise above, or will we succumb to our inevitable demise? These 16 horror stories by Lagoe explore the supernatural as well as human horror associated with grief, guilt, severed relationships, and severed limbs. The severed limbs one is kind of funny. It's not like haha, laugh out loud funny, but sort of like dark comedy. You'll just have to read the collection, and when you read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to go through the different stories. There is sort of an overall theme, like the synopsis said, dealing with grief and guilt and relationships, either making relationships or breaking relationships. Relationships between spouses, between parents and children, between other family members, between friends, between new friends. I really enjoyed the collection. And it does sort of have those common themes, but Lagoe did a good job of mixing the stories up. Like it said, there are some monster stories, there's some supernatural, maybe some sort of ghost stories, and then there's also the real life horror stories with what people do to each other and things. So it has a good variety of different types of horror stories mixed in, all sort of fit around sort of those common themes within the stories. But I'm going to go through the stories real quick and give you my brief thoughts on each one. Since they are short stories, I don't want to give too much away. So the first one, the opening story, is Lucid Screaming, which is a play on the title Lucid Screams. This one is about a druggy mother who isn't very good with her kids. She forgets it's her weekend to take the kids. Her and her husband are divorced. She's very neglectful of her kids and of their needs, and the story sort of spirals into what can happen because of that. Story number 2, The Haunting Murder. This one deals with, it deals with crows, and the calling of the crows is sort of haunting reminders of screams to this one guy. Story number 3, Luna's Lure. For this one, it talks about there's in different little towns around, some people have gone missing on the full moon, and the 2 guys on the front porch sort of joke about it being werewolves, and they go to check on the neighbor, sort of this hot lady who's moved in next door, and they check on her to make sure she's okay. Number 4, The Great American Eclipse. This was my 3rd favorite story in the book. This one had a sci-fi edge to it, which I enjoyed. But this one, it's about an eclipse, and the people we're following are in the path of totality, where will be a total eclipse, and they're going to an eclipse party, and there are these new eclipse glasses on the market, and maybe they're not all what they seem to be. Next up is The Best Seat in the House. This is a super short story. It's only 100 words, and all I'll say about this one is be sure to buy your circus tickets. Next up, Abandoned Souls. This one is about kids and their families who come live on this army base, sort of army brats, if you will. But things aren't what they seem. It's sort of desolate here. It reminded me a lot of the Low Men in Yellow Coats, which is a Stephen King reference. But the families that are left here seems very sparse and not many people are here when they should be, and something more sinister is going on sort of behind the scenes in this one. Next up is Malignant Roots. This one is a bit about a father who in life just seemed to suck the life out of everybody and everything around him. And even in death, he still seems to be draining and sucking the life out of everything and everything around him, and including his children. Next up, Helping Hands Retreat. This one is about a sort of a shelter or a home for battered or abused women. And the lady who goes there, it's not what it seemed like it would be on the brochures. The name's a little bit different. It doesn't look as nice as it did in the brochures. So something's a bit off, and I'll just say be sure to clean and wash your hands. Next up, Severed Connection. This one is about a wife who is wanting to speak to her dead husband one last time, and she goes to sort of this sleazy, greasy, dirty looking sort of guy who's into sort of rituals and like seance sort of magic to try to get to speak to her husband one last time. Odor Mortis. This one is about a mortician who is infatuated with the smell of death and the extents he'll go to keep that scent alive around him so he can keep enjoying it. Next one, Slice. This one's probably the most out there, the most off-the-wall story. This one is about sort of this hole in the wall, this Russian pizza place, and just some weird happenings and weird toppings that go along with that. This one, not that it's not a good story, but I could totally see this one being like a cheesy, see what I did there? A cheesy sort of 80s, slasher, crazy kind of movie. But that one is Slice, about pizza. Next up, Intimidating Smile. This one is about a girl who has some sort of deformity or disease that has caused her to have vampire fangs, and she hates them. She wants to get rid of them because people are always staring at her or asking her if she's a vampire, and she's been wanting to get rid of them basically her whole life, but an incident occurs to her that might change her mind about that. Next up, Astronomer's Mistress. This was my second favorite story in the collection. This one is about a husband's neglect of his wife. She feels that he doesn't pay her any attention. All he does is pay attention to the stars and the skies above, and the fallout of that. Next up is Memory Lane. This was my favorite story in the collection, my number one story. This one's about a grieving father who has lost a child, and he just keeps thinking about the memories of the child, and he has like a photo album, I believe it was, that had a recording on there where he could push a button and they were able to record the baby's voice. And it was just a baby, so it's not really saying anything. It's just sort of the voice of the baby. He keeps pushing it until basically it dies, and it goes into sort of anything he would do to be able to listen to her voice one more time. Next up is Brush with Fate. This one was sort of wild as well. This one is about sort of haunted or possessed paintbrushes, and if you use them, you can create these masterpieces as a work of art. But what would the cost be for that? And last up, the last story in the collection is Empty Nest. This is another one about a grieving father and thinking about what he could have done differently with his children. But like I said, overall, I really liked this collection. I gave it 4 stars. Excuse me, it was really enjoyable. This is going to be a weird analogy, I guess you'd call it. But this collection reminded me of a good stand-up comedy set. Not that these stories were funny at all. There was a dark humor in a few of them. But what I mean by this is usually in a good comedy set, and Dave Chappelle does this a lot, where somewhere near the beginning he'll have a joke or a punchline, and It'll be funny, and you'll go on, you'll sort of forget about it as the rest of the comedy set goes on. And at the end, the final joke, the big finale, he'll somehow tie that earlier punchline back in. And that's what I really liked about this book. From something near the beginning to something near the end, it ties back in together. It rounds out very well, and that was really enjoyable. This book is the first book I've ever read that actually has a trigger warning in the back. It has a trigger warning for stories about loss of children and parental grief. So if those things don't bother you at all, I totally suggest you check out this collection. I really enjoyed it. It was great. I will be looking forward to reading more stuff from Lagoe. I did get an ebook copy of this from the author for review, so thank you to her for sending this my way. And this, it was supposed to come out on the 28th of February, I believe, which is today you're seeing this video, but it looks like it's already out according to Amazon. It came out on February 26th, so you can go ahead and pick it up. But this will be my last Women in Horror Month read for February. But I still will be continuing to read women authors, women horror authors, women authors for other genres throughout the year. Just because it's Women in Horror Month is over doesn't mean you should or I will stop reading women authors. There's some great women authors out there, just as good as any of the men can be. But that's all I have for you all today. Again, this has been Lucid Screams by Lagoe, 4-star short story collection. But thanks for spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.